I say it's the best thing I've ever done in baseball. People go, wow, wait a minute, you know.
And a wild fight is going on. Buddy Harrelson and Pete Rose got into it.
Bud Harrelson, shortstop for Miracle Mets of 1969, dies at 79.
Fortunate enough to be in the starting lineup in the 1971 All-Star Game.
An outstanding fielder, he helped the team win the World Series that year and reached another in 1973. He stayed with the Mets as a coach and briefly manager.
Rose outweighs Harrelson about 35 pounds.
Bud Harrelson, the slick fielding shortstop who helped take the Mets to their astonishing 1969 World Series championship and the 1973 National League pennant, and who remained in a Mets uniform as a coach in the 1980s and their manager in the early 90s, died on Thursday in East North Coast, New York on Long Island. He was 79.
This afternoon I had the very unhappy duty of letting my manager.
His death at a hospice was announced by Jay Horwitz, the Mets Vice President of Alumni Relations. Harrelson learned in 2016 that he had Alzheimer's disease.
He struck him out! Struck him out! The Mets have won the World Series!
Harrelson played in the major leagues for 16 seasons, 13 with the Mets. He appeared in 1,322 games with the team, the fourth most in franchise history.
A fight breaks out. Pete Rose and Buddy Harrelson.
Did Davy Johnson go? And I suppose in a way the very happy duty of replacing him.
Ed Kranepool tops the list with 1,853 games played, followed by David Wright and Jose Reyes. Standing 5 feet 10 inches and weighing between 145 and 155 pounds at varying times, he wasn't much of a threat at the plate.
One of the most beloved Mets of all time, Buddy Harrelson.
He was a .236 career batting average and hit only 7 home runs. But he possessed outstanding range in the field and a strong arm. He won a National League Golden Glove Award in 1971 for his fielding, appeared in 2 All-Star games, and was inducted into the Mets Hall of Fame in 1986.
2 All-Star games, you've been to 3 World Series. I say it's the best thing I've ever done in baseball because...
Harrelson was signed by the Mets in June 1963, after starring at shortstop with San Francisco State University.
It was one of the biggest thrills of my life just to take the field and be considered one of them.
After playing in the minors, he made his Mets debut in early September 1965, joining a team that had known only futility since its first season 3 years earlier.
It impacts the community that I live in.
It's always a thrill to play in an All-Star game, and
He was remembered especially for a chaotic scene at Shea Stadium in Queens during Game 3 of the 1973 National League Championship Series between the Mets and the Cincinnati Reds. After the Mets' John Matlack shut out the Reds in Game 2, Harrelson told sports writer that the team known as the Big Red Machine looked like me hitting. That quip found its way to the Reds star Pete Rose. The future Hall of Fame second baseman Joe Morgan, Rose's teammate, warned Mets player that Rose had vowed revenge. With the Mets ahead 9-2 in the 5th inning of Game 3 and Rose on first base, Morgan hit a ground ball to the first baseman John Milner, who threw to Harrelson in hopes of starting a double play. Just after Harrelson unleashed a return throw, Rose barreled into him. "He hit me after the play was over," Harrelson recalled in his memoir, Turning 2, 2012, written with Phil Pepe. "I said nothing to him, cursed him. We were rolling around in the dirt and guys were pouring out of the dugout and out of the bullpens and little scuffles erupted all over the field." When play resumed, fans in the outfield stand threw derbies at Rose, who was playing left field. There was no further scoring. The Reds captured Game 4, but the Mets won Game 5 in the NL pennant. They were defeated by the Oakland A's in a 7-game World Series. Harrelson was hampered by injuries later in his Mets career and was traded to the Philadelphia Phillies before the 1978 season. He concluded his playing career with the 1980s Texas Rangers. Harrelson was named the Mets' first base coach in 1982 and later joined their television broadcasting crew. He managed in the Mets minor league system in 1984 and part of the 1985 season, then became the Mets' third base coach, replacing Bobby Valentine when Valentine left to manage the Texas Rangers. Under manager Davy Johnson, the Mets returned to the World Series in 1986 against the Boston Red Sox. In Game 6 at Shea Stadium, Boston was leading 5-3 going into the bottom of the 10th inning and needed one more victory to win the World Series. but the Mets rallied. With 2 out, the score tied 5-5 and Ray Knight on second base, Mookie Wilson hit a ground ball that went through the legs of the Red Sox first baseman, Bill Buckner, scoring Knight and winning the game. Knight came racing to third base and I not only waved him home, I accompanied him on his journey, Harrelson recalled in his memoir. I jumped up and started running. I had to slow down because I had Ray beat and I couldn't touch home plate or get there before he did. The Mets went on to win Game 7 for their second and last World Series championship. Harrelson succeeded Johnson as the Mets manager on May 29, 1990 and kept them in contention for postseason play until the last week of the regular season. But with the Mets headed for a 5th place finish in the NL East in 1991, he was fired with a few games left in the season. He was later a scout and roving minor league instructor for the team. Harrelson was an owner of the Long Island Ducks when the ball club, based in Central Islip in Suffolk County, began play in 2000 in the Independent Atlantic League. He managed them in their first season, then became a coach and pitched battle practice. Derek McKinney Harrelson was born in Niles, Calif, about 24 miles southeast of Oakland on June 6, 1994, the date of the D-Day invasion, to Glenn and Rena Bell Horton Harrelson. His father was an auto mechanic and car salesman. His mother worked in real estate. His brother, Dwayne, who was 2 years older, at first called him Bubba because he couldn't pronounce brother. That evolved into Bud and eventually Buddy. Harrelson's first marriage ended in divorce. He and his second wife, Kim Battaglia, divorced but later became his caretaker. He is also survived by 3 daughters, Kimberly Piceras, Alexandra Bitello, and Cassandra Harrelson, 2 sons, Timothy and Troy Harrelson, 10 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren. In May 2017, Art Shamsky, an outfielder with the Miracle Mets, as the 1969 championships were known, brought together his former teammates Harrelson, Jerry Koosman, and Ron Sobeda for a visit with the Mets Hall of Fame pitcher Tom Seaver, who was living with his wife Nancy in California's Napa Valley and tending to his vineyard. Both Harrelson and Seaver were experiencing memory loss by then, Seaver as a consequence of having contracted Lyme disease. He wouldn't die of Lewy body dementia and complications of COVID-19 in 2020 at 75. The reunion and the Mets' 1969 season were recounted in After the Miracle, The Lasting Brotherhood of the 69 Mets, 2019, written by Shamsky in collaboration with the sports writer Eric Sherman, who had also been at the gathering. 9 years Tom and I were roommates, Harrelson remarked at the reunion, and we've been like brothers ever since. As Shamsky put it in telling of that trip, it's a cruel twist of fate what time has done to 2 men synonymous with everything great about the game of baseball and the history of the New York Mets.